Welcome back, Zhenya. This is the second time we're actually trying to
Yeah.
record this. And the first time we tried to record this, it just didn't go at all. Like, literally, everything was crashing. Everything just happened to be not going as planned. And I think today's service at the church we both attend um, was maybe the reasoning for it because what we will be talking about today, right? Partially, besides like actually getting to know you as an individual and stuff, your background and everything else, um, is healing.
Yep.
And the song that you wrote called Healing. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Zhenya, Eugene in English,
Right.
um, how old you are, where you from, where were you born, how'd you end up in Florida, the Sunshine State?
So, yeah, as you said, my name is Janya. I'm 24. It's kind of weird for American people to pronounce my name, so I use Eugene here. But my wife doesn't really like it. So now I'm kind of like retraining everyone in her family, her side of family, to say Janya because it used to be Eugene. But besides that, I moved to US when I was 17, but it was kind of like not immigration, I would say, because I would keep coming back to Ukraine, where I was born, and we kind of were in contact from time to time, right, in the summer
Right.
camps and stuff
Yeah.
in Rivne. So yeah, I started as I would say my first kind of thing that I did was the music because I don't consider anything else that I did before that as something serious that impacted my life as much. So when I started writing songs, that was kind of like a first identification of me as a person, I guess, or like attaching myself to
Right.
some sort of thing. So that's music for sure. Then things were like work wise and career wise that were changing, but the first, I guess, how do you say, connection to some kind of um, thing I do and career that was music. So I started writing when I was like 16, I want to say.
So you found your purpose, if I can phrase it that way, at 16, and that was like music. You're like, this is what I want to do as like career slash what most people will like recognize me as in terms of like out there.
See, that's kind of whole other story because um you know how in Bible it always there's always this contrast between what you actually do and what your motivation is,
Right.
because you can be outside, you can be all like good and well and
Right.
do the right thing, but the motivation is wrong.
Right.
So I'm not sure where it came from actually. I'm not sure that it was at just can't remember the state I was in. I remember it was connected to the war that was going on. That was um
You talking about like the revolution that happened
that
in
after that, because the revolution didn't impact me that much. I don't know why that, like, I just didn't hit me. But when first people started dying, I
right.
mean, right, even during revolution, when first people started dying, I was like, man, that thing is big. So when you would hear about the war going on, I was pretty young, I would say. I didn't really know much. So that's the first kind of emotional hit that I got, and I started writing then. But then when it comes to music in general, because I did a lot, I did producing, I did recording, I did arrangements, I worked for other musicians, so not just for myself. So that whole thing was um, like my motivations for it were. I'm now discovering that they might have been like sometimes in the right place, sometimes in the wrong place, because I really like the fact that I get to make something out of nothing, pretty much.
Yeah.
That's a cool feeling.
Right.
And being a producer is kind of cool because you sit like beside the recording engineer or arranger or something like that, and he pretty much does all the technical work, and you kind of like let the flow happen and you navigate it. So
Right.
that sense of like power and stuff like that. So it we don't really talk about it much, but it it is there is something to it. And so I was recently, God was, during all the things that I'm going through with my health and with um, relationship with my wife, he started to kind of like give me hints on things that motivated me and kind of clearing it up a bit. So
Like
yeah.
pruning, kind of in a way.
Yeah. Because you don't, you live life, you just like go with the flow,
Yeah.
you do things, and you think that, how would I do it any other way? Like
Right.
it just happens. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. It happens to me. Not I do it. We don't take life as I'm forming it, kind of, or I'm an active agent who helps God form it in a certain way, So sometimes we kind of like take this passive approach, but when you actually start digging, looking into what you do with your decisions, you can figure out so many things, and you can be surprised by what motivated you and what was in your heart while you made certain decisions.
If this isn't too much to ask, or if you are comfortable sharing this, what did you find yourself pruning out of your life? Like those maybe negative motivators, if you're okay sharing that.
Well, I don't think that it was necessarily something bad, but I would just discover that, because I don't think the sense of power or sense of control over things is necessarily bad, because there are a lot of stories in the Bible where you could see kings and people who are faithful, who are good, like in relationship to God, and they still have all the power. They control things, and they feel fine. They can navigate it.
Right.
But I'm just, I guess, part of it was, we kind of really sidetracked. We went like so deep right
but
from the start.
hey, we're just going in. This is probably why the Lord's just like, not that day, this day we're gonna record, and I'm gonna just do my thing. You know what I mean?
Maybe because remember how we started the last time? It was
Right.
kind of like overall picture,
Right.
stories and stuff, and now we're like going into like psychology of things, and but yeah, well, part of it, I think, as a guy, as a man, it also always has to do with our dads. I think it has a huge impact.
100%.
Yeah.
I'm so happy you touched on this,
Yeah.
and I just want you to go.
I don't know. You don't know where I'm going, but we'll see.
I'm feeling it. I'm feeling it, bro.
Because see, our families, and especially our dads, they're forming us, and they're giving a sense of like where to go, what to strive for, and I never was kind of like because my parents split up when I was like 4 or 5, something like that, and then I didn't have that sense of like a figure, I guess, or I didn't allow maybe for my dad to be a figure that I've strived towards. But what I found is that I'm copying him in a sense of, he was always a guy who would do business. He would know how to navigate people, how to manage people, maybe in like a very like strong way.
Right. Like army dad, just like everything by the books, like
kind of. But he was good at it, and I think I got it from him, and I wasn't good with stuff that he was good at. Like he would be good at business and construction stuff, but he would always like just not actually do stuff, but he would manage.
Right.
So then when it came to music, I was kind of like a very weird person in the family. Nobody took it seriously, So that was what was cool about it, is that I got to gain this kind of respect and how do you say, like people actually started associating me with the term musician at some point, and that was kind of cool. But this part, music, is kind of like not very strong. You can't really kind of like be a man in a,
Right.
like mm, how do you say,
Society just doesn't view you in the sense of like masculine
something like that.
and like very what man definition is usually like the first picture that pops in when you say man. You
Yeah,
think like this big lumberjack dude
yeah,
cutting wood or something,
yeah.
wearing a flannel or whatever, you know. So I totally understand that. Yeah.
So yeah, when it comes to music, there are ways to be that. There are ways to be like masculine. There are ways to like be in control, but you have to be in a certain position, like a producer, for example. That's what I liked about it, and I think that came from trying to kind of like prove that I can be that in my sphere.
Mm,
I can be like masculine or man or like control things in
right.
my sphere.
Yeah.
So that was kind of cool. But on the other hand, when you recognize that you kind of want to prove something, it typically
Doesn't go that good.
doesn't go that good. Yeah, it's not the greatest motivation. I would say, like if we're going like um, spiritual, or how I would see it going, is probably love. That motivation has to be love in pretty much everything you do. I don't know how you view it practically, but in my case, I would say there's something. There's this feeling of like when I talk to my wife, that happens a lot actually. When I actually express my feelings towards her, and I say certain things that I either like about her, or what God teaches me through her, I start like crying a little
Wow.
bit, like a little bit, But pretty much every time that happens, so and I can tell that my heart is motivated with love,
Mm,
because she is giving me the sense of somebody to, um, I guess, live for, or fight for, or earn money for, all of that. And I understand that this motivation is good. So, and I think I'm yet to discover that in a lot of spheres of my life, where you do anything and you kind of like get emotional because it comes from the right place. Anything you do. I'm not sure I'm there even 50%, but I got that sense from the relationship with Sarah. So Sarah's my wife, as
yes.
you know.
In case nobody knew,
Yeah.
he's married. Don't try to get him.
Yeah, she makes the best guacamole.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Thank you, Jesus.
Well, she's half Mexican, so what do you know?
There you go. There you go. It's in the
uh,
roots.
uh, yeah, so as I said, the motivation is a huge part in terms of doing anything. And today we talked about, during our little lunch or snack, or well, for you it was lunch. So we talked about the fact that in my life there was certain things that were motivated by fear, and that's like, wow, that's, you don't want to have that.
No,
You don't want to have that. So
because like as I mentioned to you guys, um, you know, that one preacher who, um, pretty sure it was Mike, not Mike Todd. Anyways, the name is slipping. But fear is the language of hell, and like that's something I myself had to like realize. You know, when he said that, it's like, wait, so like these thoughts of fear and all this other stuff happening are not from God, because you know fruits of the spirit, if we read it right, it doesn't mention that.
mm-hmm.
Peace, joy, love, um, if anything, it's fear is the vice versa of fruits of the spirit, like um, in a degree. And so realizing like, hey, I'm getting all these fears popping into my head, and it's like, hey, let me stop there and realize that, you know, who is this coming from?
Yeah.
You know, who's the source? Because everything that comes from God is good and pleasing, you know, And fear is not good and pleasing. As anybody who's maybe even right now like grappled with fear, I just encourage you to like stop and ponder. Like that's something that helped me, as a person who likes like to plan and very detail oriented.
Mm-hmm.
When like one of the ways I guess you could say we get attacked as individuals, for my type, of character, is it's like, oh, but maybe you didn't plan for this, or maybe this will happen, or maybe this will happen. So it's like all these variables of the unknown.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the ways that like the devil tries to attack and get your confidence off what the Lord has like set in stone, and be like, no, just leave that, because this and this and this might happen. No. And some people are so grappled by that they literally don't come out of their house, right?
Mm-hmm.
In extreme cases. Jordan Peterson does a great analysis on this, which we both really like to listen to.
Yeah.
And speaking of which, I just saw that you have a book down there.
I actually thought about that book because
Beyond
I was reading it, and that was the kind of rabbit hole that he described in terms of fear. I didn't correlate the two when it comes to my like health stuff and what I thought about today. But when you talked about this, like not getting out of a house, that's pretty much what happens. Like if you get stuck at some point, for example, you don't want to say something because somebody can perceive it wrong. You don't say anything, and then you think, well, if I do something, I don't know, whatever, at work, something wrong, somebody can, I don't know, shout at me or do something wrong. So I will not do anything. And then you pretty much go down this rabbit hole where you just, are you vegetable or something? You can't live like that. So, but what's funny is that sometimes we allow a certain stage of that to happen in our life because it doesn't affect that life as much. You can't really, it's not like you cannot be like laying in bed all day,
Right, right.
but we allow it in some other areas. And why? Like, why would you do that even for a little bit, for a little extent, to let devil stop you, to let devil like not let you fulfill what you have to fulfill in this life?
Yeah, that's so true, because going back to Jordan, but I was at an event in St. Pete where he was there, and
Oh, you already went there. When was it?
this was man. Okay, trying to backtrack. I think it was a Friday or Thursday. It was like the 2nd of February. I can't remember what day that was. But
that's cool.
It was a great experience. First time experiencing, that type of show, so to say. It was like lecture based, but one of the things he talked about that really captivated my attention was that like clinical depression, right? One of the cases that can happen is this fear, it creeps in, right? And so like the example he used was a student fails a test, and he's like, if he doesn't chop that like negative thought of like, oh, I failed this test, now I'm not going to become, I'm not going to pass this class. And then, trailing down, being like, oh, if I don't pass this class, I can't, get into this program. If I can't get into this program, I'm going to be a bum if I can't do this. And basically it trickles down. And if you don't cut it down right there, it like progressively goes and just heads the person down into clinical depression in a very bad state of like being in the room and all that. And so that's like, I think a very important thing to realize is like, hey, let me just stop real quick and realize, where is this coming through? And I think in general, having that type of approach is very important in terms of like, I love focusing on the concept of like rest, Jesus said, be still and know that I am God, right? When you're still, you realize what's happening around you,
And was it more important, even you realize what's happening in your head?
Yes.
Because you can't keep track of all of these thoughts, like the first step of your rabbit hole. You can't keep track of it if you're not paying attention to what you're actually thinking, because you're thinking like tons of thoughts every day, and then something may stick, you know, and you, if you're not careful, it will grow and it will make something bad happen along the way. So,
Um, yeah, for sure, man. I want to kind of like switch gears for a little bit. So you, from what I understand, did you grow up in a Christian family or you did not?
when I was like 7 or 8, my dad decided that me and my stepbrother, we have to go to a Sunday school because my dad is from very, um, how would you say, conservative Baptist family. They had they had 7 kids, my grandma and my grandpa. So that was kind of like very Ukrainian, traditional, very, I would say strict. My grandpa was mostly strict. My grandma is like the nicest human being on earth. Um, and she taught me some things. She would teach me these verses from the Bible, and like we would sing together and stuff when I would come visit. But then I never went to Sunday school or stuff like that. So when I was 8, that's when I started going to Sunday school. I liked it. It was cool because it's more about community. I didn't really get what it was all about. You know,
Yeah.
I thought till like I was 14, maybe 15, that it was just about behaving nicely and doing the right things in your life, you know. And then it hit me that it's kind of like all about Jesus and what he did for us. But I guess it's good to grow up in this environment, even a little bit, because even if you hear about proper values from time to time, sometimes it's better than to not hear about those values at all, you know. So that's cool. It keeps you in check. It gives you a sense of the conscious, you know, like your brain starts to navigate in the right direction in terms of your life decisions and stuff. So I think that would be a huge disadvantage for me if I wouldn't have that. So that was kind of like story till I was 14, and then from that time, um, that was kind of like this path of discovering who Jesus is and discovering how to live in faith and making a lot of mistakes. That's how I, my one of my friends who's the pastor in Rivne, he says, um, we were having a meal or something. I don't remember what it was. And somebody asked, "When did you repent?" And he's like, I took like a second there because I couldn't try to remember or something. And this pastor said, "After baptism, huh? Like we all do." Yeah.
That's a
So
good one.
yeah. So that was my story, 100%. I did so many mistakes after baptism that I can't even like count. That was, yeah. And then
How old were you
when
when you got baptized?
I was I think I was 16 or
16.
17, 16 I think.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I wanted to get baptized because of like all the friends and stuff in church when I was 15, but then my mom was kind of like maybe
Maybe wait a little
wait
bit.
a little bit. Yeah. You're a kid, you know.
Yeah.
So I think that was good because after that I switched. I went to a different church because I grew less conservative, I would say. So that I got baptized in a different church. It was still a Baptist church, and I am still a part of it in Ukraine. But it was just more of a, what do you say, alive from my perspective when I was a
Right,
kid.
right.
Yeah, because I'm not sure how it is for older people to be in conservative churches. I don't want to just criticize it outright that it's wrong. Maybe it's a good community for them for that age. You know, it's just not very
Right. It's not your cup of tea,
kind
as
of, kind of. Yeah,
the
yeah,
expression goes.
yeah.
Um, so sounds like you went through all that, right? And then let's go down to the area in your life. Like, when did that moment happen where you're like, okay, like Jesus is not just a far distant person. He's actually Abba Father. He is an individual that I can have not just a monologue with, but a dialogue back and forth, right?
Mhm.
Um,
So I think it had to do with me discovering the internet and discovering the fact that you can grow spiritually using that too. So that was part of it. I think when
I
I
think
was,
you're the first person to ever have said that.
yeah.
Honestly, yeah, that's awesome though. Like, I find that interesting.
So when I was 14, I started listening to all of these preachers that, as I said, I was a part of conservative church, and I would hear that you have to do certain things certain way and not do certain things certain way, and I would hear that every Sunday for years, you know, and then I would hear somebody saying that Jesus died for you and He loves you, and I don't know if I haven't heard it before or hadn't heard it before, or was it something that I just didn't pay attention to? I don't know. I don't know what it was. I can't say for sure. But that just hit me. So I started listening to a lot of, I would say, outside sermons and people from different churches, and start listening to like more of a worship music. And that I think cleared things up for me. It wasn't like a done deal because I repented and I accepted Jesus as my
Right.
savior. But of course, it's a process of life. You have to manifest your faith.
Right.
You can just
You
say that you are believing but not manifest it. So that's why God gives us time on this earth to manifest it, to give us
yeah,
ability to manifest it.
and like that's literally why, this podcast, the name for it, the path of a believer. You know, you have this path that you're on. I have a path that I'm on, and we can constantly look back at the things we went through, um, the ups and down moments, and I think one common theme throughout everything can be, despite whether, because I know people who had a great walk with the Lord and then just trickle down afterwards, right? um Whether it became more about just kind of emotions, or just purely about logic, um or just fully atheist, right? But what's undeniable about all of those testimonies, not looking at the person, not looking at who was speaking, right, and just being like, oh, you said this but now you're here, it's like it doesn't deny the fact that at one point in that person's life, God did this. He was able. God is able to do that in your situation.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, I think we're underestimated, at least me, I underestimated the power of free will that God gave us. And that's why we can say that our um, belief makes sense. Our God just makes sense
Yes.
because He created the world where He's just, and He also loves us. So in order for Him to mm, create a free person, He must install this ability of a person to disbelieve, not love Him, go the opposite way. He must do that because He wants to do things out of love, not out of control. So our free will is, I don't know, I'm not a Calvinist by any stretch of the
Right.
imagination. Just because of this fact that we have a free will.
Yeah.
You can literally at some point of your life, while accepting Jesus, I don't think God like grabs you and says, "That's it, you're mine, your soul is mine." If you don't want it, if you don't want to be with God during eternity, that's fine. And He has to respect your free will.
Right.
It's not fine for your soul,
Yeah.
but it's fine with Him because in order for Him to be, how do you say, how do you call a person that is like coherent, I guess? In order for Him to be like act coherently, He has to let you make decisions.
Yeah.
And sometimes He grabs you when you're on the wrong path,
Yeah.
and He guides you back.
Yeah.
But when
Tough love.
yeah. But then it doesn't, I think at some point it could be the case where you decide to not want to be with Him, and he'll respect that. And it's scary, but I think that makes sense. So it's always about understanding that God loves us and He wants a relationship that is free from manipulation. And that's why we make so many mistakes with the relationships, is because we don't get it that love is the driving force, and people are free to make their
Judgments.
judgments and stuff about us, for
Right.
example, and we can't. If we try to manipulate it, it'll work for some time, but then that's not love, and you don't want this relationship long term.
You know, I think one of the greatest and toughest loves is tough love. It's very easy to receive, right? Regular love, right?
Mm.
But the love where it's like, hey, you're doing something wrong right now. And like, I need to do this to you because you're going to fall into a greater pit. And you might hate me. You might not talk to me. You might do all this stuff, but it's all for your good. And I think in one way that was like Jesus manifesting, one of the ways he manifested his love, right? He did things where it was that tough love moment. It's like he knew if he does this, everybody's gonna hate him. Everybody's gonna want to kill him,
Mm-hmm.
and everybody's gonna want to mock him.
Mm.
But that's where I think the greatest and hardest love manifests in those moments. Because let's be real. I mean, if I love somebody back that loves me, that's easy. The Bible talks about this. You know, there's a verse that specifically mentions this.
Yeah.
But when like, let's say you have a son, right? And the Bible even says, those who do not discipline their own kids do not love their kids, right? And I'm not talking about abuse or anything like that, but like, within normal means, whether they're grounded from using their devices and whatever. And it's like, you take that thing away and now the kid's angry and not happy. And that's a manner of tough love application, right? And right now the kid might not understand that and everything else, but with time, God willingly, he'll understand and he'll thank that person for the tough love.
Yeah. Also, what's I think it's cool to keep in mind that cool, kind of weird word to use here, but you have to keep in mind that if you want to do that to someone in a relationship, you have to be wise about it.
Yeah.
It comes from wisdom, because God always does that from wisdom. He knows what's going to happen. But if you're just like arrogant, you don't know what's going to happen. You
Right.
want to like control people, for example,
Yeah.
just because, but you're not really wise enough to know that if you do this, if you do your tough love,
Yeah.
that you're doing it with the right motivation and
Right
from
motivation.
the right place. But God always knows that, because
Yeah.
He has this ultimate wisdom. And we started reading this Bible plan for this year, and we read through some of the Proverbs. Yeah, there was Proverbs, and it talks about wisdom as a embodied person, kind of like a
Yeah.
woman. That I think it was a she. I'm not sure. I think it was a she.
Solomon describes it as a she.
Yeah, so I think that was it. And wisdom, it says that she was there from like beginning. It was by this force, kind of like starting point was wisdom, because I'm not trying to like judge anyone, or it's like a minor point, but the fact that God manifests His tough love with wisdom, I think that should comfort us and like ground us and let us think, okay, He knows what He's doing, even
Yeah.
if it's kind of hard sometimes.
What are some moments you remember in your life that were kind of like tough love moments where you learned from them and you're like, thank God? Like somebody, did you have any of those type of even moments?
Yeah, I definitely had those, and I
If you don't feel comfortable sharing about it, you don't have to.
It's a lot. It's I think couple of times God stopped me from doing certain things that I knew was wrong, and He did it by just literally, I don't know, receiving a call from someone,
Wow.
like at that moment, like specifically that moment,
Wow.
when I knew that better not do this, and I like receive a call like right then and there, and it was not one time. That was kind of funny because it was a lot of times, and then I think even the situation with cancer and this whole journey that started when I was 21, it it was part of it too. I think it could be tough love in a sense because God taught me so much through this. I might wanna understand it fully. I might wanna sometimes be like, why? But He taught me so much, so
Um,
I don't
how,
know.
if we can transition into that, because, right now, especially, we have so many people. It maybe it was just not as documented back in the day, but we have so many individuals nowadays, like family members or friends, who go into having cancer or passing away from cancer or getting healed from cancer, right? And each person, it's like a different journey for them going
Yeah.
through that. What has that journey so far been like for you since, let's just say, inception or the diagnosis of that moment
hmm
to now?
So from this diagnosis time, I would say I was like 21, I think. They performed biopsy and they discovered that this was lymphoma, and I wasn't taking it very like seriously or with a lot of fear. Mm, I think it was in a phase of denial for a good amount of time, but it was also kind of like my dad would ask me how was my health from during that time, and I would be like, man, Dad, I have cancer. What kind of question is that? But now I understand that even through this, okay, I want to reach to a certain point, but I'll have to.
Yeah, go for it. Go for it,
Yeah,
bro.
it's kind of like it's just a big journey. It's a big journey. It was 3 years. It's been 3 years, so
We got
that's
the time.
yeah, not 3 years though.
Not 3 years.
um,
Battery will die out faster.
yeah, yeah. So I would take it kind of like in denial state, and I would think that, oh, not a big deal. I can do it, and then the first decision that we made in my family and me personally, it was, and I think God also helped to make this decision through certain things. I got insurance in Florida. I got ability to be treated here, and we went for chemotherapy because that's what the doctor recommended. And I was kind of like leaving God out of the equation in terms of praying about it, thinking about it much. I thought it would be just they said 85%, 90% chance because that's kind of like a really easy type of cancer to treat, It might come back, but the first line of therapy is usually pretty successful. Um, it didn't happen to me. So then when it didn't happen to me, that it didn't go away in 2 months of therapy, it hit me that, well, I have to do something about it. I have to take this approach of being aware that am in this situation. Because before that, I was kind of like, things are happening to me. We'll fix it real quick. It'll be okay.
It'll work itself out somehow.
Kind of like, yeah, kind of like it in general. It will be fixed, But that didn't happen. So I think I might only guess. I don't know what's up. I want to talk to God when I am with Him about this. Like, what was going on? Sometimes you do certain things and then you are like, but I really want to know why this happened. sometimes, and you kind of like, nobody can answer that. So that's only God's thing. So I want to talk to him about that, if I will want that in eternity. But it was a moment of realization that I need to switch gears and look at it from perspective of, what do you want to teach me, and what can I do? Because before that, it was more about what can be done to me, and I don't want to. That's a disclaimer. I don't want to give any health advice or anything. It's just the problem with a lot of treatments for anything now is we want to have things done to us. It's a passive approach, and I don't find anywhere in the Bible where people would just sit and have things done to them just because
Well,
they have to, make a step.
this just confirms what you're saying. The verse where it says faith without action is dead, you know?
Yeah. I actually came to realize that because before that, since I was 14, as I said, I saw faith as something that is like a top of a mountain, like something that we have to have, and that's it. And yeah, that's right. But the problem is, if it doesn't manifest itself, it's not that you have some kind of wrong type of faith, or maybe a partial faith or something like that. Sometimes you just don't have faith and you say you have it, and that's very different. And if your actions don't manifest it, it's just a test, simple test. So there was a lot of things that I did in terms of trying to fix it myself, I guess, with like natural stuff, whatever. It was 2 years, and I think it was also it's kind of like a problem with anything is those motivations. If you try to take everything in control, that's active approach. That's cool. We like checks out. It's not passive. You don't just sit and have things done to you, or await your death or something. Okay, that's better. Action, but your action could be also done from motivation of I don't really trust God, but I think I heard this supplement or this like person that says this has this thing on YouTube that's gonna help you. So you kind of go back to square one. You don't really grow. It's just a different type of a thing that is not maybe better because you're active. That's cool, but then you leave God out of the equation too. So and I think God still teaches me a lot about these motivations. I don't know why. Actually, I had so much different view of our conversation today, but it started with motivations, and I think it's kind of like the continuous theme is. Doesn't matter what you do. Like you do chemotherapy, fine. You do natural stuff, okay. You do fasting, fine. And but your heart is really trained when you are motivated properly. That's the only way for God to manifest His glory and to train you in life. Because there are a lot of things that He can fix, as you say, with like tough love. There are things like that, but the problem is you have to be willing to not let your heart harden, because
Yes.
you let it harden with circumstance, or like I have cancer, why would God do this to me, and why would this happen, or why would my family member do this? If you let your heart harden, no go.
Yeah. It sounds like, from you just describing all that, it's like finding the balance between not being like, God, you don't know what you're doing, I'm going to take this into my own hands, and the balance between, oh no, I'm going to sit back and relax and like kick my feet back, and it's just going to rain over me in a sense, and I'm going to just. So What were some practical things you did to get to this mindset of where you are now?
I'm still
Well, you're still developing,
yeah, I'm
obviously,
still
but
developing, so that's another thing. At every point where I discovered something that I'm gonna be vague here.
right,
I'm gonna be vague because I don't want to give any like specific advice. But I think somebody may hear something of value in this. At any point that I learned something new about my health situation, about cancer in general, about like certain practices, at every point there was this thought at just maybe right away or in some time that you have to. That's right. That's a correct way to do it. And now you have to kind of like look down, or there's no other way. Else is wrong. You have to look down on people or look like their practices are not as good as yours just because you had this technique or you had this thing you learned. And I would always have it, and I would pretty much always give in to this thought because I don't know what's up with that, but this sense of like superiority or a sense of oh, I know what's right to do with your health now, or I know what's a correct thing to eat, or what's a correct thing to how to do things. It would you don't want to have that thought like give roots, and because you never know what's going to happen next. And it seems like the journey is always kind of like this. But if at a certain point of time you start giving like very intense practical advice for someone, or that it doesn't come from place of love, but it comes from place of like I know what the deal is, then it's not gonna go well. I don't know. It's a little vague, but there is this thought, and I'm trying to, because recently I started. They offered me in Tampa, a cancer center. They offered me to go through another kind of chemotherapy, and I already went through two types, and it didn't work as they expected. So now I was like, what do I do now? And we're still, me and my wife, we're kind of talking through what we're going to do. But I'm a little hesitant to give any like technical advice,
right,
because
yeah,
this is, as I said, a lot of it is motivations, what's in your heart, because I believe that if you have pure intentions, motivations, and God is developing you in a certain way, in a certain position, your recipe may be different, you know? Um, so, I don't know. It seems like, I'm not sure, but it seems like the goal is to get to the place where anything happens and you are like,
God, I trust you.
God, I trust you. That's right.
Good. That's a
And
good place to be at.
I think that's the ultimate thing, because then you're not scared of death. You're not scared of mistakes. You're not scared of not measuring up. You do what you can if you have pure intentions and good motivation, and you genuinely ask God to develop you in a different, shape you in a certain way, and then whatever happens, because it doesn't the circumstances don't have to define how you feel, or you don't have to panic because of circumstance.
It sounds like you did a good job in this journey so far of not being like, this person did chemo and he's good. why didn't it work for me? Like, it seems like you navigated what a lot of people have of like comparison, the comparison game, right?
Hmm.
Not doing that. Like,
Well,
maybe you did, but like, meaning some people are just stuck. Like, they're literally, they just compare themselves so much and they're just like, I'm depressed, you know?
yeah, I think comparison is part of what I was trying to describe, this vague sense of like superiority or um, commenting on something. Or you can, yeah, I was talking from more of a perspective of I know better because I have this revelation or whatever it is, or this plan. And now I'm looking down on people who, like, I don't know, do some, refuse to get chemo or get chemo, you know. But you're also talking about this other perspective of comparing yourself to people who do all these things, and you kind of like don't match that, and you're like, why would I not? Did I do something wrong? You know, you start all of these. That's not healthy.
No,
That's not. It's your journey. It's like you're here in this moment. You don't compare yourself.
it's like the saying goes, comparison is the thief of joy,
Mm.
you know? And I mean, in every aspect, not just, let's say a health journey, even like, let's say life goals. Oh, this guy's 24 and he's, let's say, got a Porsche, a Lamborghini, and a big house or something, and you're like, I'm here driving a Honda Civic
I'm
19.
here having a 911
Yeah.
made with Legos.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah, and literally it's like, no, if you let that get to you, your joy will be just taken out. And we should not let that be so. Um I want to transition now to talking about a song that you wrote called Исцеление in Ukrainian, healing in translation. From what I know, the little bits, you wrote it while going through this whole process. Um,
It was kind of like a prophetic song because I didn't know that I had cancer yet.
right.
I was I got a request from Alex Lashko, and we were about to do this huge thing in Ukrainian music, Christian music theme that has never been done before. That we would bring all these musicians. Pretty much, he would coordinate it. So I would say he would bring all these musicians together, and they would write worship songs that are original, not translation, original worship songs in Ukrainian specifically. And he picked a couple of musicians to request songs from her, from them. And he also did a little like contest when people would send their songs and they would get into the um, album. So when it came to his request, I was like, I don't know how to write a worship song. I used to write stuff that was more kind of like philosophical. It was more like my songs would typically be um, about some social issues or some, yeah, as I said, philosophy or my emotions. So I didn't have much experience in terms of writing worship stuff. And then I literally Googled how to write a worship song. And I got some like answers from like Hillsong and this and that. And I was like, okay. I had this idea from one of the pastors in Hillsong. It said, we just want to tell people who this Jesus is. And I thought, that's interesting who this Jesus is. I translated it to Ukrainian. I was like, oh, I'll make this chorus. So that was kind of like a huge process. And then I just took it off of the song, this whole chorus altogether, because my brother said that it just doesn't grip you. So I redid it. And then it was, I think it's kind of like three parts. I wrote verses at once, when it came to me, I was just sitting. Sorry, I was just sitting there playing my guitar, and I would play the C sharp minor chord, and then I would sing, "Yeah, truth," and then Shchavlinskyi love, and then this first line would be just like came together with the music.
Yeah.
The chorus was done separately, and the bridge was also done separately. And I don't know why. I don't know where it came from, this specific topic. And I was like, wow, Stilenya is kind of like a very
Heavy.
strong, heavy name for it. I was like, I want to do it. That's good. Yeah, I want to like, because typically Christian songs, especially in Ukrainian, it's like your love or your
Yeah.
love is, or
Yeah.
nothing is greater than your love.
Right. Right.
So this was kind of like a statement. And I had no idea what was going on in maybe my body, or, I had no idea. So after the presentation of this album, in 3 months, I got diagnosed with cancer. So that was like, oi, oi, oi.
Wow.
Yeah, very prophetic for me. So I'm still on my journey now.
And I mean, when you found out this diagnosis, was your song already finished?
Yeah. We already finished it, released it, and it was 3 months, I think, 3 months after presentation of the whole album.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
I'm gonna read like what I try to translate the first couple parts about it.
Okay.
And I just want to kind of get your kind of like insight about what this kind of means. And there's one specific part that I really want to kind of get your insight on. So it goes, I heard that he heals the blind, and those that fell into endless sleep. He was able. Show me your name so I would know where the truth is, because your love lives in my life, flows into my life. That's really powerful. I'm just going to say that, like literally reading that. I believe you are God, always, and that I will find myself in you. You know, I didn't know this, like that it was written before, but like, these are some powerful words, man. Like, I don't know if you sing this sometime after this or ever performed it afterwards, but I mean, seeing somebody who's going through what you're going, it's not an easy journey. My dad went through cancer. He's in heaven now. And I know it's one of the toughest journeys there are. And that line, because your love lives in my life, flows into my life. I believe you are God always. How did you come to that verse?
That's a chorus, I guess. That's a chorus.
Sorry, I'm not musically literate.
I don't know.
You don't remember what kind of just...
The first, I guess the first thing that ended up being part of a song was that first verse. And then the chorus is kind of like manifestation of the, I know what I'm standing on,
Oh.
Kind of like that. And it's written from a perspective of a blind man. It's not written from perspective of me.
Wow.
I kind of took that blind man from the Bible and,
put it into that. Wow. That's awesome, man.
So I can't really say much. The only thing is, it's like my journey.
Yeah.
That's my journey.
Do you ever, when you listen to this song, how can I put it properly? Ever think like, hey, if I never wrote this song, would I have still went through this?
Mm,
Because you know how like people say like be careful what you pray for type
mm.
of thing, because one day will come knocking at your door.
Ah, that's intense. uh, I don't know. I don't know. And I can see that I was you know, you want to be strong, you want to be very like you
Positive and
positive, you want to believe in things. And sometimes you're like not really careful about what you're saying. I can see that you're like manifesting certain things that I can beat this, and then God's like, well, deal with it. Like I can give you an opportunity to grow
yeah,
and form you in a person that I want you to be. Might not be easy.
yeah,
So I don't know. I'm not sure about that. But definitely it gave me hope. And not that song gave me hope, because I still think that um, um, how do you say it? Song itself or lyrics itself themselves, they don't carry um, pretty much anything. If you just write it on paper, that's like nothing, you know, just words. But the information and the
substance.
substance, when you give it to other person to hear, when you transfer it to someone else, that's powerful. So
And
I
I believe you did a great job, bro. Just want to say in general, like I've listened to the song so many times, just like on a repeat, like when I was just like prepping for everything, and I'm like, man, like I've listened to it before, but like knowing you and like everything that's been happening, and like to the degree that I do know, I'm like, wow, this song is like literally like about Zhenya. Like
mm,
you're just like, yeah, God is still God. I still believe in God, you know.
yeah, I think that's the one of the hard things to understand when you go through life is it, as you said, trust him. And that's also my position. There's no other way. You know, sometimes God wants you to grow, and you know there's a challenge, certain challenge, and you know it's like hard to go through it, but you also understand that there's no other way because God gave you this insight before, and I think it happens to a lot of us that good things come from overcoming. Good things from in relationships come from overcoming. My relationship with my dad, it wouldn't be it wouldn't look the way it looks now if I weren't to decide that I want to respect him for the a lot of good things that he does and he did, and just change the posture. And you grow through this feeling of like, but I don't want to do it. My inner child is like, no, gonna I'm gonna, I don't know,
Rebel.
rebel or pretend that problem doesn't exist, you know. So you just have to overcome it somehow. And that's when good things will happen. And um every time it happens, every time I'm like, I have two options: to rebel and to think, blame God and take this passive approach, or I can grow in it and thank God for the lesson. So that's the approach I've taken with the situation with the health, because it's not the only thing that's been going on in my life. There was a lot of things, and when it comes to relationships as well, building relationships is not easy. And every time your ego wants to like, you know, um, just get so big that it overwhelms everyone else in the room. You have a decision to make. You know, even if something bad is done to you, you always have a decision to make.
For sure. Going into this, there's thing I believe would be just it's just more like a faith act
Mm.
if you're okay with doing this, and the reason for it, the Bible says those who refresh others will themselves be refreshed.
Mm.
Are you okay just like stretching your hands to one of the cameras, that one, and just praying like healing over people, just whatever the situation, just like quick little prayer.
Sure. Sure. Lord God, there is power in your name, and there is power in your words, and there is power in accepting the fact that you are in control and you are ultimate judge and ultimate one who holds us in your hands. I ask you to bless everyone who's watching and let them be warriors. Let them be the ones who overcome, who want to grow, who want to don't look at the circumstances and give up, but the ones who will stand by your side and move forward. It doesn't matter if something bad is currently happening or will happen. We know that we're with you and we walk by your side and you're bigger. Thank you, Jesus. Amen.
Thank you, bro. Thank you for being on this podcast, for actually letting me like get this privilege and honor of recording it. You're usually very careful and like precise with who you work with and stuff, and I feel very honored for letting me. When I asked you, you're like, yeah. I was like, wow, this is awesome.
Well, thank you. I think I kind of want to. It was a part of, how do you say it? Letting God work, because I know that words and information and testimonies are powerful. So, but sometimes you just want to like live your life and you think your story doesn't matter. But what I felt is, if I can be helpful to one person, that's cool. That's good. And if it's on Sunday, because I'm very busy during the week.
Hey, praise God, it worked out.
Yeah. Thank you for coming.
Yeah.
Do you like our setup here?
Yeah. I mean, guys, let us know. I mean, I think it's very comfy and everything, and уютно, as they say in Ukrainian.
Затишно.
Затишно. Oh, sorry, man.
Yeah, I teach my wife some proper Ukrainian, because my relatives are always saying something like "привет" and stuff.
Yeah. The whole surjik type Ukrainian. Yeah. Oh man, yeah. I'm probably gonna get some shame about that one. Okay, I had just a couple quick little questions to finish this off, like just fun little questions. Name 3 books that have impacted your life.
The number one would be Carolyn Leaf, Switch on Your Brain. That would be number one, because recently it helped me a lot. I went through the whole 21-day mind renewing program, and it was totally biblical in terms of how apostles wanted us to renew our mind. Yeah. And it's possible, like literally your mind can be, I just want to say, your mind can be renewed, like physically. So that happened. And then what is the, I would say, I don't remember the name of that book, but there was one book about relationships that I read recently. Maybe it's somewhere here. No, probably don't have it. One of them is 12 Rules for Life by Jordan Peterson. That's pretty standard, I guess, because it doesn't necessarily, don't look at it as a, how do you say, panacea? Is that a word?
Panacea. I'm not
like a
manuscript
solution, a solution for all the problems.
Okay.
Because it's still naturalistic framework, mostly. So if anyone knows what it is, it's way of interpreting the world through this lens of what exists. So we don't see spiritual realm, so we kind of pretend it doesn't exist. But I don't take this approach at all. But I would say it's interesting to see someone try to navigate practical aspects of Christianity and ancient scriptures and trying to implement it in a more of a secular framework. That's I think it's decent. It's interesting, just as a thought exercise, and trying to be more of thoughtful about how you manifest your faith, like practically.
So
Man, all the
that's
books just went out of my hand. What did I read recently that was really good? I read a couple of books that were on negotiation tactics that really helped me in my work.
okay.
So there was this one book. Don't remember the name of it, but it was written by a former FBI negotiator.
I think I know what you're talking
Yeah.
about. Yeah, yeah. I saw like a YouTube video about it and stuff.
Okay. It's a very, very cool book. He talks about this one situation where he wanted to negotiate a price at a dealership. He was buying some kind of truck, and he would be using some of the techniques from the FBI, and he negotiated like, I don't remember, like 40% discount.
Oh,
or
wow.
30. I don't remember. But the thing is, proper words and the way you voice things,
Yeah.
they matter. And that's pretty cool. Yeah. Well, there's a bunch. There's like Carnegie. What is this? How to gain? Is it Carnegie? How to gain friends. Man, forgot the name of it. That was also a very cool book about negotiation strategies. But yeah, there's a lot of good books. Just read.
Yes. Read. Favorite color?
None.
None?
I don't have a favorite color.
So like more of a black and white guy or something, or
No. I have colors I like. I don't have one favorite. I like purple. I like beige. I like white. I like this color.
Okay.
So
Any favorite like team?
no, I'm not a fan of sports.
Not a sports fan. Okay.
No.
I think that's about it.
Yeah.
That's the last thing.
Yeah. Well, after you heard that I'm not a fan of sports, then
Yeah,
I don't want to ask any more questions.
nobody wants to ask. They're like, that's it. Well, guys, this was Zhenya, and stay tuned for more.
Thank you.